Welcome back to another episode of the Bridge the Gap podcast powered by Revenue Reimagined. Today's guest only needs to go by one name. We don't need two. We will just go Karthi in quotes, co-founder of Audience Haus Rev Genius, a category designer who helps brands turn story into strategy and community into pipeline. She's helped scale teams, shape narratives, and rethink how companies go to market, not by optimizing funnels, but by actually helping to create movements. We're going to talk about what's broken in modern go-to-market, what AI is changing, and how smart teams are building systems that actually stand the test of time. Karthi, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Adam. I've heard good things about your introduction.
Listen, if I do nothing else, I could do a pretty mean intro.
Karthi, let's start with GTM versus category design. Let's jump right into it. So let's start with something you say often. Most teams confuse positioning with category design. Break that down for us. What's the risk of skipping category work? What does positioning or running out of gas mean? And what's a real world moment where the design, the category has changed that trajectory of a company?
Right. Okay. So there's a lot for us to unpack there, right? So I'm going to take the purist view and then the mainstream view and talk about both, right? So the purist view of category design and GTM is that category designers create the market, they don't go to market. So inherently purist category designers, what they believe is that go to market can only be done if there's an existing market already there and you're just going to market, right? Whereas if you're a purist category designer, you are creating a whole new market, ergo you are not going to market, right? But on the flip side, go-to-market leaders would argue category design is a well-formulated, thought-through strategy of go-to-market. It's a way to go-to-market where you are, instead of going to market, you are creating the market, but it's still a go-to-market motion that you're running, right? So there are two hypotheses, both in all roads lead to Rome type thing, both end up taking you to the same destination, but how you look at it is different, right? So the purest view of category design, if you take that, right, the nuance there is that they will always be focused on evangelizing the category first, right? Whereas if you're a go-to-market leader who's creating a category, sometimes that can just be positioning, but not really, you're not actually creating a market. You're creating white space in an existing market. You're finding white space in an existing market and playing there. So that's the big difference, right? So now, for example, there are examples and examples of companies who have done category creation versus just go-to-market. Now, the biggest takeaway here is, and you guys obviously are both CROs, is not everybody should actually be doing category design at all. In fact, we would strongly advise most people not to create a category, like at all, right? It very much depends on the personality of the founder, the product vision that you have, and the gumption you have to go the distance. Because category design is not something where you see, like, it's not going to create $1 billion market, like, oh, in a year. That's not happening. Like, it's not going to happen. You have to have staying power. So that's the biggest thing.
I think what you just said about having to have the staying power is so important that most people don't realize. Everyone's like, I'm going to go out there and we're going to create this category, right? Like I worked for a CEO who wanted to redefine, call it, RevOps and forecasting. And we're going to create this custom category and we're going to be the new forecasting. And like it didn't end well. Dale knows the story. You actually know the story too. We won't call anyone out by name. You can't do that. When do you create a category, or when do you skip that category work and say, we're just going to do better and redefine the category that already exists? Because I think there's a lot of good companies that do really good at that redefinition. You don't have to be the first, but you have to be the best.
Yes. So technically, right, Facebook wasn't the first.
Yeah.
MySpace was, right? But they just...
Oh my God, we're old.
You're old.
Yeah, thank you, Dale.
Listen, mister.
They just named, framed, and claimed it better. And Dale, to your point, that's where even within category design and creation, right, the positioning really matters. Is your ability to own that narrative and that villain is very important, right? I mean, I believe I'm not wrong in saying Lyft is the one who actually were kind of pioneered kind of, on-demand sort of rides, but Uber sort of ended up creating a category for it, right?
100%.
So those are the nuances, right? Just because you're first to entry does not always mean you're the person who sees that future differently enough to take people on that journey. So the journey is really important. So I have a couple of friends who are creating this probiotic vegan yogurt, right? So this is a really interesting story. So, and they understand fundamentally about category creation and design and all of that stuff. And because it's a, it's a fast moving item, right? Getting shelf space and stuff like that is really hard for them. So they decided to create a new category. So as a friend, they came to me for support and I helped them name and frame it, everything. But they sat on it for 3 years because they said,
wow.
oh, my product is not ready yet. Right? Now what's happened is the people, now they want to launch the product and they're like, oh, like we have to build a community. And I'm like, you guys should have started this a year ago. Because now you have to make up for, let's say, 48 months of what you know and the journey you've been on, and you have to fast track that and take everybody on that journey and get them to the same place and mindset that you are in. Because you already see the future. You've done the research, you've talked about it, you've done the product, all of that stuff. Nobody else knows what's going on. And that's the biggest risk, in that your ability to see the future, but also take people on the journey to you seeing that future. It's easy for us to see. And Dale, we face this even in go-to-market, right? We see something, we see, pardon my French, you see when shit's going to hit the fan, right? With experience. But we sometimes find it really hard to communicate it to the rest of the team as to why we need to mobilize now, because we're not articulating that our journey of thought process to seeing the shit hitting the fan very well. And this extends to category creation as well, because you have to take people from a current reality to a new one.
100%. 100%. Category creation is hard. Like I did it one time. I remember doing it in like the model driven development world, and we were trying to do it with Gartner, and it was like super difficult, super expensive. Yeah, I mean, luckily enough, we kind of rode Pega systems tails because they were kind of on that same path. So you kind of like try to find somebody and do that fast follower motion, because the actual category creation, you need a lot of money and you need a lot of like time, or you need some time.
Well, you need money, you need time. More than that, you need patience from C-level, right? Because everyone's like, oh, attribution, like, when am I going to see revenue, all of that stuff, right? And you're like, talk to me in 5 years, maybe.
So that ties into my next question, and it's funny. Like, we half joke, "Talk to me in 5 years," but Dale and I were talking this morning, and I actually posted this morning about speed in go-to-market and how things are changing, arguably by the minute, with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
But I think, is it real AI? Or is it delusional AI? So like everyone's cramming AI into go-to-market right now, right? Like, oh, AI could do this and AI could do that and build an agent for this and build an agent for that. From your perspective, like, where's the real signal that AI is like real and needed and useful? And where are people being like so delusional with like, AI ain't gonna fix this?
So I think for all of the humans out there, I think there's no real danger right now, at least, of humans being completely replaced by AI, right? I think we've all talked to the AI models enough to know that there's a ceiling, there's a threshold. Is that going to change in the future? Sure, maybe, right? But right now, it requires human intervention, right? So that part is, we're delusional in thinking that it's going to replace us right now, but we're not. We have to be extremely pessimistic and think that it will replace us and plan for that future, because that will happen, right? We all have to upskill ourselves. So that's there. So then the second part is, and Adele and Adam, I think you guys already know this. Anytime there's a new technology, there's this horseless carriage concept, right? Where we all like kind of leapfrog and say, oh, now we're going to have horseless carriages with this new technology, and we go build these horseless carriages without building the road for the carriages, and then you're like, okay, so we have the horseless carriage now, but it can't take us anywhere because we don't have the infrastructure for it, right? And that's the big delusion part that's happening, which is we're slapping AI onto everything without solving for core go-to-market. Core go-to-market problems have not changed. If it's siloed, AI is not going to work. If you have no clearly defined processes, AI is not going to work. If you have dirty data, your AI is just going to amplify it, right? If you have crappy lead information, AI is going to take that, lead, score it, and start a whole automation pipeline that you can't stop because it's agentic. It's learned and it's done it, and it'll learn and it'll send you a signal saying, oh, look, this intern who is tagged as the CEO downloaded an ebook, so now you got a hot lead, run SDR, run, right? But then the SDR is like, after 4 hours of research, actually it's not a CEO, it's an intern, and they downloaded the book like ages ago. What's happening to our pipeline, right? So those core go-to-market issues are not going away, right? The biggest thing we have to understand, and I remember telling this to somebody else as well, AI does not fundamentally understand human personalities, politics, egos, silos, all of that stuff, right? So the part where we have to level up as humans is truly unify go-to-market. If we don't, slapping AI on top of it is not going to work. It's going to fail, and the best part is we're going to blame AI for it.
I was just talking to Adam about this morning. We have had the same go-to-market problem for 30, 40 years. It's the same problem. It's just how we execute and solve the problem could be a little bit different. And so where we're looking at going is I'll give you an example. I just posted a little video on this today. Most people need market awareness. They need to be able to generate a bunch of content because there's so much content out there. If you're not generating content, no one's finding you. If you generate a little bit of content, no one's finding you. If you're not generating really decent content, no one's finding you. So so now we get into a place where we're having conversations with customers how do you get awareness? Okay, let's generate a blog, let's do a podcast, let's do derivative content on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And then they're like, okay, traditional go-to-market is let's go hire 3 or 4 content marketers, or let's hire a content agency and they're going to go generate this content. And let's find out, I don't know, 8 months, 8 months from now, we'll find out if it's working because you need to flush it through. Or you go modern GTM, which is AI enabled, AI orchestrated, and you're doing the research, you're pulling out content, and you put the human in the loop to make sure that it is exactly on brand, you're on point. Most of the AI can do it now, in the branding space. And so there it's not one or the other. It's pick the way you want to do it. And then, but executives can't get over the fact of, okay, I got to go spend $15,000, $20,000 to build an AI system. I'm going to go buy a writer or a Jasper, and we're going to hit the symptom of the problem, and we're not going to hit the real problem, which is we have to fix our process, which could be ICP, buying persona. I'm not going to get into the back end of it, but it's that is so you'd rather go spend $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 on a person versus $15,000, $20,000 on a system. So that's the disconnect we're having today.
But so I want to double down on that. Sorry, Karthi, because it still goes into shit in is shit out, and I think that's exactly where you were starting. So Jason Lemkin,
watch your language. We have a woman on the show.
Have you met me? Do you not see the disclaimer that goes out with the show? So Jason Lemkin made a post this morning, and it was all about how he never logs into HubSpot, right? HubSpot's a CRM. He never logs in, and he's so happy that ChatGPT can now do deep HubSpot research because he could just ask ChatGPT, about HubSpot. And I actually did that this morning with our HubSpot and with a couple of clients' instances of HubSpot. And the problem, and multiple people, including myself, said this on his post, that's great that AI can pop into your HubSpot and answer your questions, but it's going to give you the same shit information if you were to log in and look at yourself because the reps are putting the same crap in there. that doesn't fix the problem.
No, fixing go-to-market, actually, AI amplifies it. And to Dale's point, right? Say Dale, you spoke very eloquently about the two paths you can take, right? Like modern GTM or like AI before AI GTM, right? So if you take the modern GTM approach, right, the only advantage you have is it's going to expose the holes faster. Now you don't have to go wait for 8 months. In 2 weeks, you're going to know what's resonating or not resonating, right? Because AI can do stuff at scale. But it's still going to expose all of the holes you have. Your humans are still going to have to fix it. You guys are all still going to have to sit in a room, identify your processes, your matrices, your tech stack, your data standards. All of that stuff's not changing. If anything,
Nope.
AI makes it all worse, right? And
Yep.
we all know this. We saw what happened with like the Anthropic and how they fed it some information and it used it back, right, when the engineer was trying to shut it down. So on one hand, while that's information about how it can be like a little bit unethical, on another hand, it also shows us if you feed it shit data, it's going to use it, right? So that's
Yep.
just the reality of it, right? And with any technology, right, you're always going to have the people who are like the ones who hype it up to say, oh my God, this is going to fix everything. And then there are the others who are like, it's a little bit like, a political landscape where you have the progressives, the far right and the far left, right? The progressives are more the ones who are like, wait, can we talk about this? And can we actually understand what grassroots issues are? So go-to-market leaders need to be that. We need to understand grassroots issues, because if we don't solve for that, AI is not going to. It's not going to fix it. It's going to be
Fundamental.
It's going to be worse, and it'll hit our revenues faster. It'll expose all of the lies faster. And then the worst part is, like I said before, we'll blame AI. We won't blame the human.
People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you, no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com.
Well, and the other thing is we're gonna destroy credibility for people, like company credibility, human credibility. So there's a lot of things that will go downstream from there. Let's switch up out of AI a little bit, because we could probably have 4 podcasts on AI. So let's talk about when GTM starts to crack. So let's talk about what the early signs are that a company's GTM isn't working. Is it because no leads? Is it because of no structure? And then what should they do? What should teams audit first?
So that's interesting, right? Because I feel sometimes you can be closing a lot, but your go-to-market motion could be broken, right? If you have strong individual brands within the company, right? If you have strong personal brands, founder brands within the company, you could be closing a lot of business, but your go-to-market motions could be fundamentally broken. But you're only closing business because you're riding on X or Y's brand, personal brand, right? So that's why we have to be very careful, right? The biggest problem that I see is that when you start a company, right, you go fast because you want to find market fit, right? Somehow you want to find market fit, right? So you add on all of these things and you collect them as you go on. I think there was like a movie, like a Transformers movie, where one of the Transformer bots or whatever, he just kind of collected all the parts from all of the other Transformers and made himself into a bigger one. That kind of happens with companies, where you kind of add on and add on and add on, and you don't take stock. And suddenly you're running all of these motions unnecessarily without clearly looking at revenue streams. The biggest thing we need to look at as a company all the time is, what are our GT motions? What revenue streams are they getting attributed to? If they're not getting attributed to a revenue stream, are they augmenting an existing revenue stream by supporting it? is that something we can have a conversation about, or are we defensive about it, right? Defensiveness kills go-to-market. It just kills it.
If you stop curiosity in that go-to-market stream, like, because it's going to change every so often. So I know Adam's going to say something. I want to ask you a question
you're fine.
that I ask a lot of, that we've been asking a lot. How often should you be reviewing your fundamentals in go-to-market, like your ICP, buying persona, value proposition? Like, how often should you be reviewing those?
Well, I would say if you're a SMB type of business, especially now with like AI and stuff, I would say it's at least once a quarter, right? You should be reviewing it. If you're a larger business, you could potentially go 6 months without reviewing it, but it really is a continuous exercise of learning. If you're not learning, if you're not reviewing, if you're not relooking at your processes and your people and your organizational structure, your go-to-market is failing. You just don't know, because you're seeing the numbers on the pipeline, you're seeing the numbers, revenue getting generated, but those could be deals you're closing that was generated a year ago.
And you don't know what's happening at the end of, like, you may have a lot of attrition happening.
Yeah, spot on with all of that. Karthi, so you've worked with your fair share of exec teams throughout your career. Where is the disconnect in your mind, specifically with founders or maybe even like senior level VPs that think they know, with what they think, how they think GTM works and how GTM really works?
Yeah, so that's an awesome question. And it's a little political, right? As you guys know.
We're a little political here, so it's okay.
It's a little political, right? Because it depends on the personality, right? So to me, GTM is one part vision, one part process, right? Some leaders, senior leaders, are very good on process, but are not risk takers, right? Which hamstrings the GTM process, because you're not willing to try anything new. You want to maintain the status quo. Go-to-market is not about maintaining the status quo. It's about putting processes in place that help you innovate faster.
So what's the balance? Because I agree with you. I think we have a lot of people who very much it's about the status quo. And then others where they want to take such unreasonable risks that they are arguably breaking a fiduciary responsibility to the company.
Oh, 100%. So ideal scenario is you want somebody who's heavy on process, right? The process enables you to take risk, right? Because if you're really good on process, you can take calculated risks. And that's important, to be able to take calculated risks. If you do your go-to-market right and you have the right personality, you don't just have to maintain the status quo. You can take calculated risks. You can take risks with a percentage and probability of success. And you can spread the risk by saying, this is risk 1, risk 2, risk 3. We're going to try all of these. It's a little bit like A/B testing, but you're innovating with like your A/B testing. That's your innovation, right? So you want that personality who's not like, oh my God, I'm going to throw the company to shit, and like, because I'm going to jump off a cliff and, fate will catch me, which is awesome, right? Which is great. Yay, you guys, that's good, right? Early stage founders really do need that, because you need that kind of maverick sort of style, wanting to just leap off a cliff type thing to be able to actually be a founder, right? That's what makes you a founder. But over time, founders have to also become growers and builders. You have to be able to grow. It's not just enough that you've now built this amazing thing, right? You have to be able to sustain it. And that's where it usually goes to shit. I think we're all like using shit a lot and offending them.
Karthi, let's switch up one more before we go into some other fun things. What's next in go-to-market? Like, what's the next big thing? Where are things headed? Where are teams headed? What's the next dead framework that is out there? Like, we see all these frameworks. What's the next best dead one? And what's one lever that no one's using right now?
So how teams are going to be changing? Let me answer that question. And I think we've all seen research to this that indicates to us this. I believe the time of us just managing humans is over, right? All go-to-market leaders need to be empowered to manage humans and AI. You will be managing humans and AI. That's your team, right? And here's the problem though. For now, traditionally, and Dale, you talked about this, go to market hasn't changed for the last 40 years, etc., which is true. However, this is the first time in history, though, once you've gotten to a C-level position, you're having to relearn a bunch of things. You're always relearning, but this is different in that you have to almost go down to an SDR level and relearn the sales process with AI, because now you have to manage agents and people. And you can't put agentic processes, agentic go to market. You cannot enable agentic go to market processes if you don't fundamentally understand from the ground up how they work.
100%. 100%. We were just talking to somebody last week. We were doing some sales training for them. We did initial sales training. They hired an AI analyst, which is a start on where they're going. But the question we started having a conversation on was, where do you put the AI agent? Do you put them as the manager of the people, which I found very bizarre to say, or do you put them kind of like as a sidecar, like a chief of staff to that manager to help? And so that is, people are at least thinking about that, at least people that are going through this process. I also I'm in a community, and there was an executive recruiter in the community, and she's saying now that they are looking at, when they're hiring people, do you know AI? Do you know AI agents? How are you going to implement AI? And like, you will, like, we talk about losing your job. You will just not have a job. Like, you will not be able to get a VP of sales, a director role, a CRO role without understanding pretty deeply how this works. Like, I think about, like, I've had to dust off my cobwebs on my university education to get back into some of this work. And so take the time and do the work. People won't do it. I get that, but that's where you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, that's 100% where you'll be in trouble. But speaking of playbooks, right? So the playbooks are dying because AI can replicate stuff at scale, right? It could create playbooks at scale. So that's the reason why the playbooks are dying. But if you have a really good core go-to-market framework, which creates a shared ontology that people can use within organizations and outside of it, that's actually going to be liquid gold. I'll tell you why. Purely because when you have a shared framework and common language, everything documented that way, and a way to go to market in a way that augments all of your cross-functional, AI will actually perform better, and you will know where you need to deal, to your point, what are the processes AI needs to do tasks, what are the processes human needs to do, what is the overlap where you need human intervention.
Yep.
So having that core framework now actually becomes key.
100%.
So I agree, and Dale spends the majority of his time transparently talking about this. And because the market is shifting so much, and this is where I think his product brain and his coder brain comes into place. So when you take all of that together and everything we've been talking about, what is the GTM team structure that's going to win in the next 5 years? Like, to Dale's point, like, is it that you have an AI manager? I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but like, what's the structure? Is it 5-1, 3-1, 2-1? What does it look like?
So one part of the answer is a little bit of a cop out, and then I'll explain, right? Part of it is we don't know what we don't know, and that's the truth, because we don't know how AI is going to evolve, right? And this is probably, and here's where we talked about that mix of having that mix of being able to be a risk taker but also have process is very important now. Those skills are going to become so key now, purely because you have to live in the change. This is the first time probably in the history of kind of go to market, and Dale, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, where you kind of have to live in a constant state of not knowing where the technology is going to take you, but also trying to plan for it, right? Being agile enough to plan for it. So the future, Adam, to answer your question, GTM teams, we don't know what the ratio is going to be. At least I don't personally. But what I do know is they will have to have a mindset of being agile. They will have to have a mindset of wanting to try technology. So it's more a mindset thing right now than the makeup of the teams, because we don't know what the future, where AI is going to go, right? Because ChatGPT, for example, just enabling being able to integrate with your local Google Drive and taking like your information from that, put like 50% of companies out of business, right? Who are offering
Yeah.
like some level of that service, right? So you
Yeah.
don't know what the future holds. But if you have an
Yeah.
agile mindset, right, and there, to your point, if you're able to dust off the cobwebs and relearn from what, become an SDR in your organization and relearn what it looks like to run a sales process with AI, then you're set.
Yeah, you asked a question about, and I think this is where I was originally not going through the learning process, is all the technology and how fast it changes. Like I'm like OpenAI, Claude, agentic stuff, N8N, Gumloop, like
Yeah.
Amplify, like scrapers, like there is like Clay was in the mix. Like there's so many of these things happening that it's like I needed some of the dust to settle on some of this stuff before picking it up. Because to me, if you're driving into a technology and you go deep in it, I think Gary Vaynerchuk would always say, like, it's not a waste of time because you would also be able to transfer that knowledge. But I think psychologically in human beings, like we don't want to go do a bunch of things and then realize that is not going to happen. So I think, honestly, that was one of the reasons why I didn't pick it up right away, because I wanted some of the dust to settle. Now that some dust is settling, I wish I picked it up sooner. So I guess I would say that part. I mean, I started looking at this a year ago, but didn't like jump into it as much as I have over the last 3 weeks, just because things are evolving super rapidly, and everyone's creating their own agents, throwing them out there, putting them on N8N, like all these communities. The problem still exists. I will go to my grave saying this, is that this is just a different way to execute a go-to-market strategy. If your go-to-market strategy isn't sound, as we've been talking about, there's no way you're not going to see the value. And then you're going to say, well, this AI stuff sucks. And like, this is like, this tool or that tool doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And it's like, well, you're only fixing a symptom of the problem. Humans still gotta feed this thing. You gotta learn it. You gotta water it. You gotta manage it. I like the way you talk about it, Karthi. It's like, you're managing the AI like you would manage a human being. It's not like you set it and forget it on a human being. Like, why are we setting it and forgetting it on the agent? Yes, it can learn on itself, but so can humans. Like, it's not that humans can't go learn on themselves. So it's a good. This has been a really good conversation. So we want to wrap it up with a little bit of rapid fire, since we've been so intense into all the go to market and everything happening. Let's lighten up the mood a little bit.
Comment before you go to rapid fire,
Yeah.
which cannot be stressed
Yeah.
enough, which we didn't talk about. I'm going to stress on it enough. AI agents, just running them, also do cost as much as a human do, like, or more. Like, they are costly. They're not cheap. I mean, sure, like ChatGPT and stuff compared to like hiring a copywriter is cheap, but running an agent is still like a person. It's going to cost you money.
Well, you have to have the infrastructure. There's just different infrastructure. So it's like, do I hire 3 copywriters, or do I hire an AI person to help structure everything? Like I would argue, though, I don't think it's not nearly as expensive as human beings. So yes, you have to manage it. It is costly. It's not like this is where we've had some of these conversations. Like, I'm going to go buy Jasper for $50 a month, or Writer for $50 a month per person. Like, that's not enough. You need to actually have a system in place to do that work, and that's where it's going to cost you some money. So
but the cost part, just one tiny pushback, and we can move to your rapid fire. They might not cost money, but if they screw up, it might end up costing you way more than a human ever.
100%.
Garbage in, garbage out.
Strategy, like, get the right strategy in place and then put the agents in.
Exactly. Okay, rapid fire. Sorry about that.
All right. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
What's the first app you check when you wake up in the morning?
LinkedIn.
Favorite guilty pleasure snack?
Favorite guilty pleasure snack.
It's got to be an Indian snack.
Oh, it's got to be an Indian
Why
snack.
does it have to be an Indian snack?
Laddus all day long. Laddus.
What is it?
Laddus. I'll bring some. Or I will ship.
Okay. I love it. This is a two-part question. What tech trend is overhyped and what tech trend is underhyped?
Well, sadly, again, a little bit of a cop-out, easy one, also a hard one. AI is also simultaneously overhyped and underhyped.
I agree.
Interesting. What's one piece of go-to-market advice you used to swear by that now you look at it and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I told people to do that?
That's interesting. I've always had a mindset that people should change, so it's not that, but thinking. Interesting. I'm not sure if I have one, but I'm going to think.
That's okay if you don't.
I'm not sure I have one, but if I do, I'll come back to you guys with that.
Okay. Last one. Let's wrap this up. You travel around the world, all over the place. Where's your dream vacation destination?
Okay. Galapagos Islands.
Love it.
I parallelly want to go there and also not go there because I really want to go see, but I also don't want to disturb the ecosystem. So you see the...
Yep.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So parting thought though, guys, just one thing for us to really think about, which is a lot of AI stuff is happening in SMB level, but funnily enough, the real transformation of AI is actually being driven by the large enterprises who are taking the time to define the strategy, which the SMBs are not.
Yeah.
Got it. 100%.
Don't disagree with that at all. Karthi, thank you so much for joining the show. Thanks for sharing your insights. Where can people find you and all your awesome companies?
I'm available on LinkedIn, obviously, and I'm also on Rev Genius Slack community. Plus, you can always look up Audience House and our newsletter, which I'm happy to send links on.
I love it. Karthi, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Adam. Bye, guys.